that when we get live. Welcome to They Talk Funny. I'm here with Daliso. Finally,
Finally, hello, reaching across the ocean. How are
across
you
the
doing?
ocean. Exactly. You are across the pond. You're not across the heart. You've been dedicating a lot of time to making people laugh during the lockdown, and I
Yes.
think
It was
that's
daily, and then I almost melted down. So now I'm taking the weekends off.
you're taking the weekends off. It
Yeah,
was about how long are the episodes? They're about an hour.
they're about an hour, and we're on. This is 73 was today, I think.
73 hours of material. It's like 73 Louis
Well,
C.K. albums.
really, each one has around 20 minutes of jokes, plus interaction with the crowd and random tangents and things like that. Yeah.
I know some people who may have been subscribed to the channel because I did a false start. I started and we went for about 5 minutes and I had to close it down. So they might not have received the notification that we're back up. Uh,
Oh, hello. Sorry, I was late. Here I am.
we're 5 hours earlier than you are,
Yes,
I
you're
guess.
5 hours earlier. It's just past midnight here.
Exactly. So if anyone wants to ask any questions, they can just pop them into the chat. We'll see them, and I'll bring them on screen so Daliso can answer them. Now, Daliso, I've known you for a
You
long
were at
time.
my first gig, my very first gig in my life.
Really? Uh,
Yes, first gig ever, I believe, was Comedy Nest, 2000 and oof, ages ago. But yeah,
Ages. Let's take a look at
yes,
how
that is how far back. Oh Lord, have mercy. I don't even recognize that human being. Look at me.
you I which well the thing is you are still the bright cheerful person. You are
Yes,
still
yes.
full of
My
hope.
soul is the same. I've just doubled in size physically.
I'm noticing that there in that picture I had a 4 head, and I think I'm a 5 head working on a 6 head.
Though I
Just
can see
counting
your
the fingers.
shirts have got better. Your shirts have got better.
I this shirt has a maple leaf on it, and I just uh I was raised Catholic. My wife, her family's religion was separatism.
Okay.
So
Yes.
I sort of got her to buy me this shirt as a joke to see if she would, and I only just realized it doesn't say Canada above it, and I'm not about wearing name brands, and
I
so
see.
the
I
joke on
see.
her has now become a joke on me.
Wonderful.
But I just wanted to bring that into to I love sharing that picture. I love hearing about all your success. You sort of got encouraged to leave Canada. Is that the proper
I
term?
had to leave. I had
Yes.
immigration issues, so I was thrown out. Um, it wasn't that dramatic. It was a letter. It wasn't goons at the door. It was a polite letter saying, "Leave by this date or else." I did a show called "Don't Let Them Deport Me," in which Mike Patterson played immigration, and at the end of the show, carried me off stage speaking in a thick Quebecois accent. It was wonderful. The host was Sugar Sammy, and it was just this kind of like the all of the connections I'd made. We did one last show, and then the next morning I went to the airport and I was gone. And I actually thought that was the end of me doing comedy because I went back to Malawi where there was no comedy at all. And
The way you said that, you made it sound like Malawi has no fun. Uh,
no, actually, I'll tell you what's interesting. Malawi has a lot of humor. In fact, I think I'm funny because of the Malawian in me, because there's a culture of making fun of things when they're terrible. No one
yes.
complains, everyone just makes fun of it. But in terms of people making a living off it, no, zero.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's funny. We don't need to pay for this. Yeah.
Uh, now you were in Montreal for was it 7 years for school?
Uh, 6. Oh, wait. 6 years. Yeah, 6 years.
6 years for school.
Yeah.
So you at least got to finish your school training, and
Yes.
you started. I think the one man play that you ended up taking to Fringe once you get to the UK, was it still the Feed This Black Man or?
No, 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 no. So feed this black man, which was my and don't let them deport me, were my Canadian, full of enthusiasm, not very well written, sort of journeyman pieces. Do you know what I mean? That
Yes.
I figured out what funny was. And the first one, which I did in the UK, Westerners Calm Down, which was about the financial crisis, was once I sort of think I'd started figuring out how to do a show. Because I used to just do, here's a bunch of jokes. These are all my jokes. This is now there's like a structure and
A story and a
there's a
through line.
shape and a story and callbacks and stuff like that. But I had to make those early ones to gradually figure it out.
So education, self-taught. You're all right. We're getting into the meat of actually joke writing and show sculpting early. Uh,
Yes, I is your audience comedy fans, comedians? What generally?
Generally, it's mainly other comedians who are going to be watching this.
So I can
Uh,
be uber geeky. That's
you
good
can
to
be
know.
uber geeky about writing. You mentioned callbacks already,
Yeah.
which the general layman wouldn't get.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Period. So, but it's for people who love comedy, and it's about comedy and comedy writing
Perfect. Perfect.
in general, and a little bit of we want to praise your success as well, because you have done very well. You've been living off of comedy. You've been touring the
Yes.
world.
Yes. 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 So I was doing pretty well towards by 2014, 2015. I was like headlining comedy clubs, and then 2017 I did Britain's Got Talent, and it went to a whole other level because now I could tour as me.
Right. It wasn't
And
comedian of the week coming in. It's Daliso
exactly, it's
Chaponda.
Daliso Chaponda, the Daliso Chaponda show, and just doing theater shows, which are my show, and that's what I've enjoyed the most.
So you've moved out of clubs and into actual theaters
Yes,
with.
yes, yes, yes. I mean, I still love clubs, so I use clubs to develop material. So I almost am on a cycle of, well, COVID. If COVID isn't here, I'm on a cycle of I tour for 8 months, then I do comedy club for 4 months, write the next one, then tour for 8 months, rinse and repeat.
How much time? What is your writing schedule like? Do you make sure you devote? I know with the Corona Comedy Cast, you have to devote a certain amount of
Yes.
time each day.
So I would say my average is I write for 6 hours a day, but it's not all comedy, right?
Right.
So, for example, right now I'm writing. I'm writing my next one man show. I'm writing the Corona cast, and I'm writing a novel. So between those, I'll spend 6 hours.
You've had some sci-fi novels published.
I've had lots of sci-fi short stories published. I my first sci-fi novel never got published because I think it was like my Feed This Black Man. It was me figuring out how to do it by doing it badly and then being okay, next one. And then the next novel I did not sell, but it got me a literary agent, which is very interesting because I didn't realize literary agents will sometimes they'll read a novel and they say, "Look, we don't want this, but we like where you're going. You've got potential, so we want to sign you for the next one." And so now I've got a literary agent and I'm writing the third one.
That's well. That's in itself is promising. 6 hours a day on breaking it up. Do you break it up intentionally on?
I mean, that's the average. This is what I'm saying. There
Okay.
are days when I do 8 hours, and there are
Yeah.
days when I do three, but
Right.
it averages around six. It all depends. Like right now, I have a deadline for science fiction short stories from African perspective, right? So
Okay.
it's very suited to me, and I spend a lot of the day thinking about possible ways I can go. And when I find, oh, actually, your comedy fans will appreciate it. I've created the ideas. I've created a story where there's a church of laughter, right?
Hmm.
And so, like the Reverend wears a jester's hat and tells gags, and the idea is a church of laughter. I don't know where it's going, but once I get the full idea in my head, I'm going to write it until it's done. And that could take 9 hours, like in just a marathon session. But I've done less the last 2 days because a lot of it has been thinking about this. So yeah, it's all over the place.
All over the place. You're very busy. Do you have time to actually enjoy other medias? It's just it seems like you are writing.
Well,
Uh,
I write a lot, and then there's so much admin. There's crazy amounts of admin,
yeah.
and I have an assistant now. But even with an assistant, I am always hiding from my admin by writing. It's like I don't want to answer those bloody people. So I always think my days are too full. But I'll take three. I started realizing the isolation was possibly driving me crazy. So now I make sure I call and chat to one or two people for at least an hour or two in a day because I live alone, and it's the most bizarre way to do isolation because I haven't touched a human being in months.
So it's almost reminds you of your time in Montreal. Uh,
Definitely. Actually, no, I tell a lie. No, no, no. I did babysit twice. Both my brother and his wife are doctors. So on times when they've both had shifts, I've babysitted twice. So in those cases, their kids touch me. But I'm in terms of like a grown woman, for example, I have not touched one in months. In months.
uh, I'm not sure if I said did I do the Simon Cowell quote about you yet?
No, you didn't do the Simon Cowell quote about me. He
This is
was very sweet. He said very sweet things, actually.
incredible. If I might be getting it a little bit wrong. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to read it without my glasses on. But he said you're one of the rare comedians who are as nice on camera as they are off.
This is
Uh,
very yes, it's very lovely. And actually, I've hung out briefly with him, and I think I think he liked the fact that I don't really have an agenda. I just chat and talk, and I'm not trying to say, hey, can you hook me up with this? Can you hook me up with this? And so we've had some nice chats, but very brief ones. I think I've probably met him and chatted with him. If you add it all up, maybe 6 times in total in the last all. But they've always been lovely encounters.
David Williams at that time took it as a slight, uh, but it
Oh,
was
I'll tell you something that didn't make the edit. I'll tell you
yeah.
something that didn't make the edit, right? So when I was on stage, the funniest banter I had was actually with David Williams, right? But they
Mhm.
have to edit down um your banter, and also because I had a buzzer from Amanda Holden, the storyline made it better if the biggest laugh was in my banter with her. But
Right.
what actually happened is David Williams has done. David Williams asked me, "So, who's your favorite comedian?" And he put his hand like this. And then I said, "Well, I'm from Africa, and you've done comic relief twice, so I think you win." And it got a very big laugh in the moment. And I was like, "Thank you for the food," and it got this huge laugh. But I understand why they took it out because it didn't quite fit in that little narrative. But
Right.
yeah,
And it's also Comedy Relief would be a different production company
it would
as
be
well.
entirely. And that, oh, you're so right. The channel things make such a big difference. Is it? I'll tell you what the other crazy thing is. On a show like that, every celebrity you mention, they have to send the joke to them, and they have to get it approved by them or their people before you're allowed to do it.
Uh, that's something I did not real. I don't know if that's British
Because they
only.
have no. I think it's worldwide, or more so in America, because they are so crazy. So it's not necessarily like you can't do it, but it's like, is this factually accurate? Can we be taken to court for this? Has this person got a valid reason to attack us over this? It's really that's what they're worried about.
Hmm.
So, for example, I used to do a joke in which I say, "So Madonna, I'm from Malawi."
The adoption
No,
joke.
no,
Yes.
but the
Oh,
line initially used to be, "I'm from Malawi." Madonna stole a baby, right?
right.
And everybody knows she didn't steal a baby. Everybody knows what I'm referring to. But they spoke to someone in the office, and they said adopt it, and so that's what I said.
She notoriously doesn't have much of a sense of humor.
This is
Uh,
not true, actually. I'll tell you what's well. I don't know about that, but in terms of whether you're allowed to say it, one of the producers said, "Oh, we love it when people do Madonna because Madonna doesn't care. She's like, let them make fun of me. Everybody talk about me because she feels as long as people are talking about you, it's a good thing. So it doesn't matter how mean you are about her, she'll never try to block it. But maybe she doesn't laugh, but she still thinks it's a good thing that they're obsessing
have
about
her
her.
name mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Even if you hate her. It's amazing.
for those of you who are viewing us, you can just drop some comments into the group chat, and we'll bring them up. If you have a question for Daliso,
This is
we can
such a cool
put that up.
setup too. Such a very cool setup, by the way.
Thank you. The background is actually a failed photo. It was I accidentally hit the camera. Uh,
Nice.
yeah. So
Oh, but also I see you like you've got a green screen because I still am debating whether I need to order a green screen, but it adds some flavor. It adds some flavor.
it also hides a very messy room. Your
This is
room.
true.
I was about
This
to
is
say your
true.
apartment is so beautifully. It's nicely nice colors. It's very well set up. We also Joey Laflamme is a young comic here in Montreal. Is
Hello, Joey Laflamme.
just popped in to say hello. So shout out to Joey. But yeah, you've got a great setup. You always dress up for the Corona Comedy Cast,
I do. I
uh,
do. I do.
which it's a sign of professionalism, and I feel now pretty shabby. Um,
No, but I also think it's that thing of where, like, I'll tell you what's really weird is before every performance, I spray a little cologne on, even though there's no one here. But before I go on stage, I always spray cologne on, and so it's almost like a ritualistic. I just do it, and similarly, I dress up because I dress up before going on stage, and I just feel like if I did it in a less prepared way, it would affect my humor in a way.
I think we had that talk in Montreal when you were here. It was
Mm-hmm.
like you don't have to dress up for the stage, but you dress like yourself on a first date, and
That's
that
exactly it. That's
yeah.
exactly it. Yeah, yeah, very much so. Because you're
Uh,
on a first date with the audience, sort of. They've got to like you.
exactly. You're dressed to impress, and I like the ritual of the cologne. It kind of it brings it out because it's no sense like
Yeah,
smell is a good sense memory thing, and
very much so.
if
Very
you're
much so.
used to doing that before going on stage, then you're going to sort of miss it and feel sort of off. I definitely I get that. Uh, I understand. Now, where's most of your material writing coming from these days? I mean, with the Chronocast, even if it's 20 new minutes every day.
Yes. Now, first thing you've got to understand, the bar is a little lower than stand up. It's
Yes.
almost more analogous to, daily comedy shows like Fallon or something like that.
Right. The talk shows
The
with
talk
yeah.
shows. It's like that because those jokes are what I call level one jokes, in that you can get away with an obvious gag, but you
Yeah.
would never put a gag like that in a special, right? So
Right.
often it'll be the idea, and I'll do the first joke which comes to my mind because I don't have a lot of time. While if I was preparing it for a one man show, it would be the fifth iteration of that idea, and I'd polish it. And so, but at the same time, you just want to get a quick smile or a quick laugh. You don't need them to think about it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then occasionally, even in that model, you hit upon an amazing subject or an amazing angle. So even though I'm doing it every day and just doing usually topical jokes or jokes which aren't, stupid puns, stuff that isn't meant to be great, occasionally I'll hit something and I'll circle it and put it on a database and be like, that one's going into the actual set.
It's I like to whenever I'm doing something uh and I'll come across an idea. I know that I can save it to rewrite it later. Yeah,
Yes,
it's. I think
yes. Yeah.
that's a universal comedian thing. Is don't always put the first idea of the joke on the
Also,
stage.
the first idea you do is the one which other people have thought of too. Like if it's topical, for example. Like I'll give you a perfect example. R. Kelly, when R. Kelly said, what's this? He wants to come out because of COVID-19. around 80 different comedians at the same time had the thought, oh, some version of 19 is too old for him. If it was COVID 14,
Yeah.
every comedian is going to think that because
Yeah.
that's how our brains work. And if you do the first joke, you will do what other people are doing. But then if you try and rewrite it, you can do the same premise but do it in a clever way which no one else is doing. So that's that sort of thing.
You also have your website is on the screen now. You also have um, a way of making it personal to you,
Yes.
like that, which again that gives you that connection, which not all. That's the only way. That's a way to sort of differentiate your joke from the run of mill jokes when you're doing a subject that others are touching on. But
That
it's
yeah. That's very true. And I think I'm one of the very personal comedians. I mean, some of the best comedy writers I know don't put any of themselves into the show. Like there's a guy, Gary Delaney, who's a machine. He's a comedic. He's almost like a comedic savant. He's just
mhm.
like a clock, but it's just words. It's just words and connections. And he helped me rewrite an episode of my radio show once. And again, he came in, looked at my script, and it was just like a clock. He was like, "What if you move that there? What about if you add this there?" And so there's some people where it's not about them, but for me, it's very personal. The jokes are based on what I care about, what I love, what I'm scared of.
And you're very likable, and that likability translates to the audience, which makes them more willing to laugh at you. And talking about people, Vadim Gran, aka the Picklemonger, he saw you on QI and
Oh,
he thought you were
wonderful!
great.
Yes, you saw me on QI. Thanks a lot. QI was is a very hard one to write for actually because it's weird subject. So you know if you do a news quiz or like a news show, it's easy because it's like, oh, okay, I have to write a joke about Boris Johnson or Trump, or I have to do a joke about Trudeau blackfacing. It's all very simple subjects. QI, it's hey, why don't you write about a quagga? That's like a weird little creature. Or why don't you write a thing about? I did one where it was animals beginning with Q, and you're like, where do I start? It was so odd, but it quails and stuff like that. But it was
What
fun.
came to my mind was Quangaroo. But
Kangaroo would have fit exactly the kind of whimsy that that episode would have had.
there's do you remember David Pride? David
Yes,
Pride.
of course, David Pride, who wrote an amazing Buffy the Vampire script that I don't know if anyone ever saw it, but he wrote a spec script that should have been on the show. He was wonderful, amazing writer.
You should have seen his news radio spec script as well.
Yeah,
But he's also one of those people that's very much a machine when it comes to writing.
he's very
Uh,
very good.
we don't have panel shows so much in Canada. The
No,
closest
you
we
don't.
have
You don't. This hour's
is
22. Is that dead? That's dead. That's long dead.
this hour's 22 minutes is still going.
Still
It's
going. Right, right, right.
yeah, the cast has changed up. Uh, and David did write for that, but he's on this thing called The Debaters, which it's half
Oh,
hour, two
I've
comics.
seen the debaters back when it was Steve Patterson
Yeah,
was on
Steve
it.
Patterson is still the host.
Oh, he's still not. Wow, people like I like this role and I'm not moving.
It's Canada. We don't. It's not like he has a lot of options of where to go.
It was a
It-
great show then because I remember it back when I was there. Yeah.
yeah, Richard Side is the person who put it together. It's been a fantastic thing, and it's done radio, it's done television, it's back on
Also,
radio.
that would be much harder to write for because you've got to be debating. You've got to be. Always wonder how much people write and how much people improvise on those. But that to me is a harder thing than something like QI.
I believe since it's a pro or con sort of
Yeah.
thing, they have a lot more freedom with the writing the rebuttals,
Right.
so they can
Right. Right. Right.
pre-write the rebuttals. I've got my own sort of show that I do Friday nights. That is, um, it's a bit nerdier, but it definitely has an improv because it's more than a yes no sort of battle.
Okay.
So it'd be something like what would be the best two board games to mash together to make an incredible board game, and
Oh,
that's the topic
wonderful,
that the performers
wonderful.
have.
And then oh, that's a great sort of springboard. Weird questions. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
and
a guy called Richard Herring. I don't know if you know Richard Herring, but he's a
from Lee and
brilliant.
Herring.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. So he has a thing on his podcast, which I did, where he asked weird questions like that, but he calls them emergency questions, and it's for when his guest is boring. He will pull out. He will, and it's so funny because his ongoing listeners are very aware of it. And so it'll be like he'll be having a conversation, then randomly he would say something like, if you had two board games and you had to mash them together, and the whole audience knows, oh, he's so bored of this person, he's reaching for some way to energize the conversation.
I was on a podcast, and I had known the people putting on the podcast, and they and I kind of wanted to be on, but they weren't asking, and finally I asked to be on, and they put me on. And one of the segments that they did every episode was called "What's New in the Winnipeg News," in which they would
That's
do
so bizarre. Yes.
yeah, they would pull a headline out of the Winnipeg Free Press,
Okay.
and then they would talk about that with their guests. And their guests were generally, it was musicians and occasionally comedians. And I did it, and we went a little longer than normal, and then they end it, and I went, oh man, we didn't get to do the Winnipeg Free Press, and they said, we only do that when our guests aren't interested.
That's exactly it. There's some things which are in emergency break glass.
Yeah, and I felt very I felt complimented at the same time, but
Oh, I had a very nervous drive with a comedian who I had heard that if he's bored of the person he's driving to a gig with, he puts on comedy CDs, right? And
right.
since I had heard this when I was on the drive with him, I was like, is he going to put on this CD? Is he going to put on the CD? Am I boring? And I was like, I got away through the drive without him putting on his emergency CD.
We get I'm not. I think I don't know if Joey's asking me or you, but he wants to know if I want to be on the Dirty Four, or do you want to be on the Dirty Four podcast?
What's
Uh,
Dirty For?
it's a new podcast. It's for young comedians here in Montreal have started putting out. Um,
I could possibly, but again, like the time zone is chaos. Message me, but like it's. I've known Paul since forever, so it was one of those things. I was like, I can't say no.
I'm putting that up there. I'm putting that photo back up because
With that history, how could I say no, even if it's weird time zone stuff?
this is
So
where people.
ask me Dirty For, but I'm very busy, often tired, and so I might only be able to squeeze it in if I find a free day.
And Joey, yeah, definitely schedule with me at some time when I'm not interviewing an international superstar like Daliso Chaponda. You know, where's the most exciting place that you've got to travel doing
I would
comedy?
say, um, okay, in terms of the most exciting one, it's weird. It was actually the first time I went to Melbourne, but that was because that was the first time I was being flown to another country as a comedian
Another
and
continent.
to another continent. And I felt like a professional now. So this was 2008, and it was like, wait, this isn't me doing comedy clubs. They are flying me to Australia, and then on the plane, they were comedy heroes of mine on the same plane because we are going to the same festival, right? And so, yes, I was in economy. They were in first class, but I remember walking past them and being like, "There's Reg D. Hunter. There's Stephen K. Amos. Oh my lord, there's Daniel Kitson," and it was amazing because I was like, "I'm one of these people now." So that was the most exciting, not necessarily because it's the most exciting place to do comedy, but because it was the first journey where I felt like I've been validated. Yeah.
That's I that it's such a good ego boost. So
Oh,
I
yes.
definitely feel you there. Now you also Singapore.
Yes, I've done Singapore, Malaysia, done Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Kenya. I've done, Romania. Romania was bizarre because Romania, I was the only comedian speaking English. So the whole show was in Romanian. I had no idea what they were on about. And then I get brought on and I do a set and I realize at least 40% of the crowd don't understand a word.
Yeah,
And
I've,
it was interesting. They just sat politely, and the people who understood were happy. But it was just a weird show. But you just roll with it. How
I've done shows like that in Montreal, being the
Yes,
only anglophone on a
yes.
show.
Oh my god, it's so hard. And then what's also funny is you have no idea what was said to introduce you. But one thing which I did do, which I think was really lovely, is there was an act before me who was very visual and was doing lots of mime and gesticulating. I think they were mimicking some kind of sex act. So I tried to tell the story he was telling based on his movements. And
Right.
so I did my version of what I think he was saying. And that worked even on the people who didn't understand because they could see I was doing the same one. But anyway, yeah, lovely, lovely. I love performing. It's I'm like such a serious addict, which is odd because I didn't take it seriously when I first started. Because I was like, oh, I'm a writer. I'm just doing this as a hobby, but I'm a writer.
You did the grind, though. In Montreal, you did the grind. You were out.
I did. I did. But I did because it was fun. It was very interesting because early on, I was doing it like doing karaoke. I just loved doing it, but
Mhm.
I didn't actually think it was going to be my career. I was like, this is going to be my hobby, and I'm going to write big fat books. But it's quite the opposite. You know what I mean? I write big fat books as a hobby while comedy is paying my bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I I have a question because I saw on the Britain's Got Talent clip
Yeah.
that there was like a crowd of people waving the Malawian flag,
Yes.
uh, and how how are you taken in Malawi?
Malawi, it's insane. Okay. When just after Britain's Got Talent, I arrived in Malawi, and there were around 80 people in the airport with Daliso shirts on. I was invited for a special dinner in my honor at the British ambassador's place. They lost their mind. They lost their mind. Like also like they when they saw me in the queue at the to Air Malawian Air, they came over, called me over, said you don't queue, sat me at the front, made me go into the airport first, into the plane first. In exchange for that, I must take photos with all of the hostesses. And then I was sitting at the front, and everybody who came in would see me there, shake hands with me, and keep. It was absurd. Trust me, it was the most absurd thing. But I think it's partly because can you think of a Malawian celebrity?
Madonna's Child.
This is exactly it. I mean, there are few Malawian celebrities who were my dad's generation, but in terms of my generation, there's nobody really. I mean, there's one or two. There's a guy Tegrin, but there's not a lot. And so a lot of Malawians got very excited, especially the young guys. There was now someone who was their celebrity, and so it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
It's always helpful that people can point to somebody who looks like them or is from the same background.
Very much so.
Uh,
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
your father was a minister.
He's
Is
a oh
a
no no well
minister?
he's in the government. He's a politician. He's currently not a minister, but he's a representative for his
Okay,
region. Yeah,
all right.
yeah, yeah. But he
I
wasn't when you met me. When you met me, he was in the UN,
Yeah, okay.
and then he retired. Was very bad at being retired. You know, people who retire and they're just like, I'm just sitting around, and I do. He'd been a workaholic, and now he didn't know how to not. And so someone said, "Hey, why don't you, run for our region?" And next thing, it became this whole new career.
Huh. Joey Laflemme just kind of popped in. I think Montreal is one of the seventh worst hit cities in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and apparently
And
shows
shows
are.
are beginning already.
I,
Wow.
I'm really surprised by that. I might be nervous going out.
Are they
Uh,
odd? Like I'm doing in July, I'm doing two drive-in shows.
right.
So I could. So the UK is having shows again, but weird shows. Like I did a comedy club day before yesterday, where in the comedy club only the comedians were in the club, and it
Okay.
was being streamed to people who bought Zoom tickets.
Right. Yeah.
So
I've
it's
seen.
recurring, but in terms of when Paul, no, who was it? Joey? Joey, you are saying gigs, proper gigs in a room with a crowd.
Joey, can you just explain that to us a little bit? Pop in with another message. Now, I know in Ontario, which
Mm-hmm.
is hit bad but not hit as bad as us. Uh, in Ottawa, there's a comedy club that has started doing shows outside of the club.
Oh wow. Okay.
I know that
Yeah, that's
the
a
comic
window.
strip in Edmonton opened up with 25% occupancy. Like
That works.
they had people spaced out. There's also
The
you
problem
could
with that though is a lot of clubs break even is at 50% or something like that.
exactly. Comedians were asked to take a pay cut to do those. There's people who've been doing backyard comedy shows,
Yes.
which sound more like a
Oh,
glorified open mic in
there's something I'm starting
Alberta.
next week, which is comedy walks. So in the UK, you're allowed now to meet five people. They can be up to six. They can be up to six of you, and you're all socially distant, but you can go for a walk together. So I'm going to start offering comedy walks where I'm almost like a funny tour guide, and I'll meet five people and take them on a walk around Manchester and make jokes.
Okay, I think we have a bit of details coming in. Okay,
Or
so
more
it's
like half
half
capacity.
capacity.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Uh,
That's prudent.
no more than 50 people inside. Now the largest club in Montreal right now is the Comedy Nest, which David Acker owns.
Is this the
Uh,
same nest that was the nest when I was there? Yes.
Ernie's,
Yeah.
yeah, but
Ernie's,
David
yeah.
Acker. Do you
Oh
remember
yeah,
David
yeah. I
Acker?
remember David Acker
Yeah,
well.
he has purchased it with his business partner Phil Shushat, and
Oh, I
it's
remember Phil
it is an
Shushat.
incredibly well run club.
Phil
They're
was Phil was the host at the first open mic I ever did. Phil Shushat was the host, and I went on way too long, and he scolded me. It's so funny the memories you remember.
we won't remind him of that when you if you're coming over for a visit. Uh, and yeah, there's some people have done some live shows here in Montreal outside of a liquor store. So if the people who are
Right,
lined up,
right.
they set up a speaker and they've been doing that.
That's
Um,
cool. That's cool.
so I actually do my main show in a burlesque club that only has a capacity of about 80.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how well we can socially distance inside.
Yeah, that's tough. That's very tough. Because I almost feel like big venues can socially distance. Little venues, what do you do?
Exactly.
So, yeah. But I think the whole thing is there is an end to it. The question is how long it takes. Because if you look at somewhere like New Zealand, right, they reached zero new cases and zero active cases. Hello, Andrea. I remember you, Andrea. Well, hello again. Didn't wait unless you're another Andrea Cochrane. Didn't we go to university together?
She only remembers your performances, which
She only
is
remembered my performance. Maybe this is a different Andrea Cochrane. But either way, there was one I went to school with. Well, either way, I'm glad you remember me from the Comedy Nest.
now all right, let's talk about the world event right now. World, like, we have COVID, which is
COVID,
down.
yes.
China is now actually beginning to close schools. I got that announcement this morning
Yeah.
that they've
Because
started to
they
close.
made the mistake, which I'm afraid that the UK is doing too.
Uh,
When the numbers went like this, they said, oh, let's reopen. And then they did that again. And that, I think, is very silly. You've got to wait for them to go all the way down.
which might be what we're doing here in Quebec and in
It's
Canada.
prudent. It's prudent. That's prudent.
Um, I wish our leaders would learn from those examples.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other big world event, though, is because I know the protests have been happening in
Oh,
London as well.
of course, it's been
George
everywhere.
Floyd,
It's
Black
been
Lives
everywhere.
Matters.
Yes, 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 yes.
It's like the video of George Floyd was devastating, but it's not a surprise with
No, no,
everything
no,
else that's been going
not at
on
all, not at
for
all. And it
years.
catalyzed so much. And I think it's that thing of it's combination of it happening while people were in isolation and frustrated and tired created the same outrage as also, but also because I think it was one of the most undeniable ones. Because there have been multiple black people who've been killed by police before,
Yes.
but there was always a little sliver that people on the other side could defend it. They could say, "No, look, he was racist. He was," but this was one where nobody can defend it. I know some
10
idiots, but it's
minutes.
literally like, yeah, 10 minutes. Person is immobilized and begging you to set him free. Even in the UK, even racist right wing people, a few of them were like, "Yeah, that's too far." I was like, "Wow." When even the racist right wing people have realized this is too far, that's going to catalyze a hell of a lot.
Do you feel that there's a risk from the protests, like for giving a resurgence to COVID?
I think there will be. I think there will be a spike, but I think that it's very interesting because depending on the city and depending on the country, some have been more um, prudent than others. Like I went to a demonstration in Manchester, which everyone was wearing masks, most people wearing gloves, everybody was respecting each other's space. But then I saw pictures of the one in London where that wasn't the case at all. So it depends, but I think there will be a spike. But I think there was always going to be a spike more because um, it's not been dealt with extremely strictly. You know, in the UK, there've been loads of rules, but no one really being punished for it for breaking them.
Yeah.
While I've got a friend in Italy, and she says if you break the rules there, the police arrest you. So people follow the rules.
Here it's been fines. People have been getting
Fines.
incredibly large fines. There was an elderly couple, two people in their 80s that have been partners for years, but they lived apart.
Mm-hmm.
And the husband would go visit his wife in her apartment. The cops bashed down the door to give them a $1,800 ticket each
Right.
for not socially distancing. Uh,
1800. 1800.
yeah, yeah,
Oh.
and just because they loved each other, and
No, but I look. I at the same time look. I understand, but I think it's good that they do that. I almost feel like they overkill one to make
mhm,
everybody else say, "Oh, they're serious. Let's follow them."
yeah, it's just the fact that they were 80 years old. It just seems like a sweet couple, and
Yeah,
than
sweet
that.
couple. And they're like, "Hey,
Uh,
we've not got long anyway."
yeah, especially if this keeps up. It's for me in my mind, it's the balance of we need the social change,
Yes.
but I live with somebody who's immunosuppressed.
Yes.
So if I go out there and I bring
Oh,
coronavirus back, I'm
yeah.
killing them.
You're killing them. It's her. Yeah, I've got a friend whose husband is very asthmatic, and so she's barely leaving the house too because
Th-
she doesn't want to.
there's a lot of things like if anyone has ever had cancer, if they had chemotherapy,
Mm-hmm.
you forever your immune system is compromised.
Of course, of course.
But one of the big surprises that most people when they hear about it, anyone on antidepressants, uh,
Really?
antidepressants
Oh.
generally because what they do with your serotonin also influences your
Wow. There are a
immune
lot of
system.
comedians in danger then.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
that's comedy clubs reopening is a bit dangerous. Joey's asking us another question. If you've seen Chappelle's new special,
Yes. Yes, I did. Yes, I
I
did. It was
it's
very
actually
moving.
I was supposed to watch that last night. I sort of fell asleep a bit early, so that was
I did watch it, Joey, and it was very moving.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. So don't spoil. Uh,
No, nothing to spoil. It's just him talking. It's
him
less of a
talking for
comedy
8:40
show
eight
and
forty
more of a
six.
chat, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, now what's your plans? You say you already got some shows booked for July, which are
Yeah, so
drive-in
I've got
shows.
a few drive-in shows, and I'm planning. I'm gonna keep doing my Corona cast every day. I'm gonna keep writing my novel every day, and then I'm starting to plan my next tour. And it's the idea is It's going to be a melding of a normal tour and possibly Zoom stuff. So it might be something like, so depending on the theaters, the idea will be like, hey, let's book this in, and depending on where we are, we've got to be flexible. So if we've hit zero by some miracle by September, it'll be a normal tour. If we haven't hit zero, let it be a quarter full, but being streamed to people on your mailing list who are watching from home or something. I'm plotting and planning, and as your funds dwindle, you've got to come up with something.
Yeah, exactly. Now, a lot of times, I mean, Patton Oswalt came out years ago at Just for Laughs in the State of the Industry address, uh, said that the gatekeepers are less important, are not as
Yes,
important anymore.
yes.
But your story with Britain's Got Talent, how that catapulted you to like the next level, it's the gatekeepers still have a
No,
place.
no, actually, oddly, it was stepping around the comedy gatekeepers because when I did Britain's Got Talent, there was no comedy on it.
Yes, but I'm saying Britain Got Talent became the was the gatekeeper. They were the ones who opened the
Yes,
door.
yes, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, but I think that what you've got to look at is unconventional gates, right?
Yes.
Because in the UK there were two gates. One was the Edinburgh Festival,
Mhm.
and I found that I wasn't arty enough for it. The other one was a bunch of TV shows and panel shows, which only ever wanted to book one black person, right? And so I was like, I can't get on those. I can't get on those until one of the other, one of the more famous black people decides they stop wanting doing it. What do I do? What do I do? And there was a competition which doesn't care. Britain's Got Talent, they can have 500 black people, they can have two black people, they don't care. Who shows up to audition? And
Right.
that was very attractive to me because I was like, wow, they honestly won't stop me, right? It can be humiliating, but I really love the fact that they don't have any quota thing. You walk in, you perform.
I believe comedy shows are best when there's more diverse voices, and I'm not talking about gender or
No,
color. I'm just
no,
talking about points of view.
just different points of view,
Yeah.
different styles. And it's an odd thing because I also remember the first time I performed comedy in Africa. Because again, I started in Canada.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I performed in Africa, I was like, have I lost my superpower? Because is my superpower that I am this foreigner? But then I was like, no, jokes are jokes. I just got to talk about different subjects. But it was oddly a very tense first show.
So, but I imagine as soon as you get that first laugh, you were
You're fine.
in your zone.
You're fine.
Yeah. The fish out of water is a very powerful.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's interesting though. I'm a different comedian. Oh, I need to plug it in. I need to plug it in. Hold on. I've got to plug in my computer.
All right. Daliso Chaponda, he's Monday to Friday. He has the Corona Cast comedy show, which is approximately an hour long, and he has about 20 new minutes every week. Sorry, every day, as well as the fact that he talks and plays games with his audience. So it's highly interactive. I definitely recommend checking it out. As you can tell, Daliso is a sweet guy. He's there. He's got his belt on, but you got your belt unbuckled. I know this is
Yeah,
a.
I'm in my flat. I'm just chilling.
All right, I'm just glad you have pants on. I didn't need to see the boxers. It's all.
Wonderful.
It is. It's late at night for you. It's. We're past midnight. We're coming up about 10 minutes away from 1 o'clock your time,
Brilliant.
and and so we're looking towards the future. Do you think because a lot of people are doing these things streaming online,
Yes.
do you think any of this is going to carry forward into like the
I
new?
I very much think so because you build an audience because I didn't expect it, but now I've got regulars who tune in every day. Now, I once life returns to normal, I probably won't do it every day, but I might do it weekly. Turn it into like just a an extra thing which I do. So I think a lot of people, I think the people who have figured it out and are doing it well will
Mhm.
keep doing it. A lot of people are doing it terribly. and I think they will phase out. No, this is very ordered. You're talking sense. You're. I mean, there are people who are doing atrocious gigs
Without structure, just
without structure. I even think even if you're doing a talk show again, but there are people who are trying to do the gags they were doing in a comedy club, sitting and it's just different. But some people have really done well with it. In fact, there's some people who I think are funnier in their streams than they were in stand up. As always, there are people who it will be the medium that they always should have been doing.
right.
So I think I will keep doing it in some lesser version.
I'm going to take a moment though, because you've said that, to remind people to subscribe on YouTube.
Subscribe, yes,
Uh,
subscribe on
it,
YouTube.
if you're watching on Facebook, make sure you like the Paul Ash Comedy fan page. But if subscribing on YouTube, you'll be notified whenever I put videos up. This is my second They Talk Funny
Okay,
today.
okay.
So I'm doing 2 or 3 a week, just the way it was able to schedule to
And
work out.
is this through OBS?
No, it's not. I looked at OBS, but OBS was just a little too much for my computer to use. So
Right.
this is called StreamYard. And
It looks
StreamYard is
wonderful. It looks
a
wonderful.
very simple,
I
basic
might jump
subscriber
ship. I'm
service.
liking it. It looks very good.
Thank you. It's a lot of the basics
Mm-hmm.
are just like I get a color wheel that I can choose for the color tone,
Mm-hmm.
but the background is my picture. I do the little artwork for the with guest Daliso Chaponda,
Yes, yes, yes,
and
yes.
I
Nice.
made the little intro video that we saw. So it's all little things, but it's a stable platform. It's a simple tool. I highly recommend StreamYard, but it is a subscription service. It's free. You got a basic thing, and then I went
To upgrade.
one
Understand.
upgrade. It's not expensive, $25 a month.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Now that the ad is over,
Yes.
what's your thoughts about the effect of George Floyd in the UK?
So I think that so I even went to this protest, and I've got to say I think I'm very cynical in that I feel like it's a good thing that people are expressing their opinion, but I don't think it's causing any of the actual structural change you need. In the UK, they do very cosmetic nonsense. Stuff like, oh, they've taken some movies which have blackface in them off streaming service. Ooh, like that's really the change we need. I think it's about salary equity. It's about school curriculums being less British centric and being more international. It's about the legal system. Why do certain people get? So I think I was very cynical when I didn't even want to go to the demonstration, but a friend of mine was there and I was like, you gotta come, you gotta come. And then I went, and I'll tell you what gave me hope, even though I'm cynical and I don't think it's causing any real change. And in 2 years, we'll be here again. I was inspired by the fact that there were lots of little kids there. And I'm like, these little 9 year olds and 10 year olds are going to grow up with a more. I think that's the hope. The hope is that they grow up more conscious and they are every generation has steps forward a bit and then at some point it just disappears. Sort of like how this generation is significantly less homophobic than the previous generation, which is less than the one before. So I only have hope in it making the young better, and there'll be some small changes, but I actually think the real problems are economic.
Yes. Well, that's part of the systemic.
Yeah, and you're not going to redistribute wealth.
Yeah.
The you know the billionaires and white multimillionaires are not sharing, right? So you can change things here and there, whatever, but we're not really going to change how. And more than that, the rich countries, which are like a rich country which is still locked in this colonial deadlock with countries which they used to own, and now they buy their sugar and their maize for less than fair trade prices.
Yeah.
That's really what's causing it. but that's not going to change. So I think it's good. I'm not criticizing it. I'm glad it's happening. I'm glad people are thinking about it and discussing this kind of thing. But I think again, it's just us squabbling down here while the real problematic system is
Up
not
there.
even getting dented.
On that happy note,
Hey, makes for jokes, makes for good jokes. I'll tell you
it
what's funny is I filmed something today for a television channel about it, and it was very interesting because yeah, I wasn't saying what they wanted to hear, but I was like, this is my opinion. Sorry.
and that's exactly what we need to be honest with ourselves. And we need to be honest in how we express everything to each other.
Yeah.
Um, and also when it comes to censoring art, it's like how does the artist affect the art? Like once like
Yes.
Woody Allen's films, do you no longer watch Woody Allen's films? Do you?
Oh, I watch them all. I watch them
Yeah,
all. But I also think his I also think he's a complicated case because
yeah.
people aren't sure. But Bill Cosby is a good example.
Okay,
Would I
Bill.
watch the
Yeah,
Cosby Show? Because there's no doubt, right?
yeah,
And I wouldn't. But at the same time, I wonder if, let's say, he managed to live another 10 years, he does his time, he comes out of prison, expresses some remorse. Then would I watch it? It's very different. I think it all depends where you are in the story.
hmm.
I
uh,
can personally separate the artist from the art, but I don't think that it helps society for me to necessarily do that. So sometimes I won't.
yeah.
Does that
Okay.
make sense? Like I
Yep.
could still enjoy a Bill Cosby show
Hmm.
because I'm like moralless, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to do that and then have like my niece see this and just feel hurt by it. So it's more out of respect for how it would affect other people that I wouldn't engage.
And there's other times where blanket statements just don't work. Like
Yeah.
the history of Al Jolson.
I don't know Al Jolson.
Al Jolson did the movie The Jazz Singer in blackface,
Okay, right.
but he was also an equal rights activist.
Yeah, no, no, it's all very complicated.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
mean, the whole truth is, blackface is another case where I'm not bothered. I don't really care. But I also grew up in Africa where I wasn't the minority.
Right.
And so I sometimes feel like, of course, I'm not affected by it by people who are British, but even British people who are bothered by it, not all blackface is the same. There's some which piss you off and others which don't. But it's just easier to say avoid it. But like
Yes.
I guarantee you, no black people have any problem really with like Tropic of Thunder because it was a clever writing and it was self-aware. And
Yes.
there's a difference between that and the yellow face in Breakfast at Tiffany's. They're not all the same. But I like that we're discussing these things.
That that is what kind of gives me a bit more hope about the future is the fact that we are discussing these and we are able to agree that some things are definitely horrible and we can be moving forward. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, there's I think human beings the recipe's not done yet. We've got to work a little bit harder to make a better world.
For sure.
Uh,
For sure.
and thank you, Daliso,
My
for doing it
pleasure.
with
It's been a
laughter.
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Ah,
And yeah, keep on doing it. We shall survive this bizarre bubble somehow.
we will. Thank you again, Daliso, the CoronaCast comedy
Good night.
show.
Good
What
night
time of
to all.
day is it so everyone knows?
7 p.m. GMT plus one. I don't
So
know
that's
what that
2
is.
p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the CoronaCast comedy show. And you
And
can
then
find it.
also, I will say, actually, probably a better thing to send people to on YouTube. I made my first comedy special
Uh,
free. It's called What the African Said, and it's my best. Well, it's my second best stand up because I think the second one's better. But until that moment, it was my best stand up. So do check it out.
so what the African said on YouTube, and you can find that by Daliso Comedy, Daliso Chaponda Comedy channel. Is
Yes.
that's correct on YouTube? I've been Paul Ash. This has been They Talk Funny, and my special guest, Daliso Chaponda.